So once you kind of have your use cases identified, how should you approach the feasibility without really, you don't have an environment yet? I mean, we're back to the age-old thing of technology of how do you bring the capability in-house? And you and I both lived through the analytics era where a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon and maybe they went out and got a good product like SaaS or something like that, but they necessarily didn't get a data scientist. They necessarily didn't change their business processes and they failed miserably. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think to mitigate the risks of failure, the first thing is you have to have a clear hypothesis for the use case that you're stating you're going after here in the organization. Like AI-driven predictive maintenance is going to reduce our downtime on this line where we've had a lot of problems. It's going to reduce it by 20%. There's some hypothesis you're working, and that's going to focus your efforts and everyone else's eyes on a measurable outcome. What are we trying to achieve here? And then with that hypothesis, then you define a proof of concept. You're not going to just embark on a project. We have a relatively nascent technology here. It is changing rapidly. So you may be changing tools. You may find there's risks. We talked about garbage in, garbage out with your data. So that's the importance of a proof of concept. And ideally in this proof of concept, you have the data. You keep integrations to an absolute minimum. Everything that you need for this proof of concept ideally is off the shelf, no custom code, for example. You really want to have a confined, minimalist domain. And speaking of domain, that proof of concept domain should be the business domain should be minimized. It's for one team initially, it's one production line, et cetera. So this should allow us to do something quickly, fail fast, as they say. And then I would be remiss if I didn't add that if you don't have the skills or the available resources, that's where firms like my own come in potentially to help an organization jumpstart these initiatives. So Pete, let me ask you, in your experience as CEO, what are the pitfalls you would avoid and watch out for when running these kind of proof of concepts or feasibility tests?
So I always like to try small, right? So don't try to do the big, what we call the big enchilada. If you do that, you normally end up bald and gray at a young age, like I do, like I am. But start small. So there's good ROIs on items like, let's just say, reduction of labor in a contact center. I know I mentioned that before, but that's an easy target. And so on that is, again, don't go big, but maybe it's just automating a chat bot in there so that you have less time, less calls, or your talk time is lower in the contact center. And what that allows you to go do is that allows you to play with the technology and then also from there start understanding the pitfalls. The other thing is, before I'm throwing that out in public, I probably am already working at it inside the IT team and say, what are the feasibilities? A lot of time people look at and they focus on the technology, which is important. What's the technology we're going to use to go do this, and the people. I would also encourage you to go look at the how are we going to go do that, the processes and the procedures to bring that capability to market. So I'll go back real simply that, we all know of CMMI, we know of agile methodologies on the software side, but in the data science side, there are processes and procedures like CRISP DM that talks about first thing you go to, how do you prototype it, your data cleaning stage, your data normalization stage, then you develop your algorithms. How do you proof your algorithms? What is your algorithm maintenance plan and things of that nature? So you've got to figure out, how do we get this AI capability? How are we going to go produce it in-house so that we don't miss anything. And also by doing those process and procedures, you help risk mitigate the development also.